they could have lived. The enemy offered it: food, chains, breath in their lungs. But many Vikings looked at that choice and stepped forward into death instead. This wasn't madness, and it wasn't bloodlust. These were people who loved their children, who feared pain, who wanted to grow old. So why, again and again, did surrender feel worse than dying? Because for a Viking, death was not the end of the story, but surrender was. Somewhere between their beliefs, their daily survival, and the way honor shaped every breath, a line existed. Once crossed, life itself lost its meaning. And the most dangerous thing was that everyone around you was watching. Imagine a coastal settlement at dawn. Smoke drifts low. Boats are pulled tight against the shore. Men stand shoulder to shoulder, shields raised, not knowing if they'll see nightfall. They are not fearless. Fear is everywhere, in shaking hands, in quick glances toward home. But fear alone was never enough to make them run. From childhood, Vikings learned something simple and brutal. Your life was only valuable if it meant something. A man who surrendered did not simply lose a battle. He lost his place in the world. Captured warriors were often enslaved, worked, traded, broken slowly, and worse than the chains was the shame. Back home, stories would spread faster than ships. He lived, people would say. But at what cost? His name would change meaning, from strength to warning. This wasn't enforced by kings. It was enforced by memory. Around every fire, stories were told, not of those who survived quietly, but of those who stood when escape was possible. And children listened. They learned that dying well mattered more than living long, because a good death kept your name alive. A shameful life erased it. Now imagine the moment of choice. The enemy advances. Your arm burns. Blood soaks the ground. Someone shouts that surrender is possible. This is where everything slows. You think of your father, how he stood once. You think of your son, who will hear this story someday. And you realize something terrifying. Even if you survive, you won't truly live. Because every meal after this will taste like defeat. Every glance from your people will remind you of the moment you chose yourself over them. So many chose differently, not because they wanted to die, but because they refused to be remembered as someone who begged. And there was another layer, one darker, more personal. Vikings believed that how you faced death mattered, not in some distant, poetic way, but immediately. To die standing meant something followed you. Your courage, your reputation, your final choice. But to die begging, that followed you too. So when surrounded, when escape vanished, many didn't wait for mercy. They tightened grips. They charged. Not screaming, not raging, focused. Because the last thing you did was the first thing you became after. But here's the part often missed. This pressure didn't come from gods alone. It came from each other. If one man broke, others might follow. So strength became contagious. So did resolve. One step forward pulled another with it. until the choice wasn't individual anymore. It was collective. And once enough people decided, turning back felt impossible. Yet not all moments were glorious. Some deaths were quiet. A wounded warrior choosing the sea over capture. A man stepping into fire rather than chains. These choices were not celebrated loudly. They were understood silently, because everyone knew what waited on the other side of surrender. And sometimes, the fear of living afterward was greater than the fear of dying now. But this way of thinking came at a cost. Families lost fathers. Children grew up faster than they should have. Entire settlements carried grief like a second skin. Honor protected reputation, but it didn't stop pain. And over time, this mindset hardened people, made mercy feel dangerous, made survival feel conditional. It kept communities strong and fragile at the same time. Because when death becomes preferable to defeat, there's no room left for forgiveness. Some Vikings surely wondered, in their final moments, if there could have been another way. But those thoughts never made it into the stories. Only the stand did. What makes this unsettling is not that Vikings chose death. It's that in their world, surrender truly did feel worse. So the real question isn't why they stepped forward. It's this: if your entire identity, your memory, and your place among your people depended on one final decision, would you have chosen differently? Or would you too have taken one last breath and walked into the dark, knowing you would never be forgotten?